The holidays are upon us yet again. Soon people will be scouring the stores and websites to find the perfect gift for their gaming loved ones. They can be hard to shop for sometimes, especially if they're an adult, because 9 times out of 10, they'll buy whatever they want, ASAP. I mean, why wait for Santa to bring me metaphor when I can get metaphor for myself right now? Don't get me wrong, nothing beats the joy, excitement, and the anticipation of a Christmas morning. I would kill to have those feelings again. But Christmas hits different when you are an adult with bills, grappling with the failures of humanity to eat away at you at the regular basis. Was that too depressing? I don't know. Anyway, my parents always gave me awesome Christmases growing up. But what would I buy for myself if I could go back in time as an adult with my own money? Sounds like a fun premise for a video to me. Let's find out. But first, here's what I'm going for. First, we need to come up with a year. Whatever year I choose will determine what console generation we'll be in. I don't want to go too far back, but I don't want to do anything too recent either. SNES/Genesis era feels too early to me, but the PS3/360/Wii era feels too recent, especially with all the remasters we've been getting from that era in the last few years. That just leaves the 5th and 6th gen to work with. Ultimately, I decided to go with the 6 because I have slightly more nostalgia for that era. I wanted the Dreamcast to work with, so that means at best I'll have either 2001 or 2002 to work with. Next, I had to decide what I would buy. In this scenario, I'm buying a system for the first time, so naturally I would get at least 2 games and a memory card. I feel that is sufficient for somebody just starting off. Now that leaves the matter of a budget. If I recall, the systems were going for about $300. Games were about $50 or so back then, so if I give myself a budget of about $500, that should leave me about $100 left over to get a second controller and possibly a memory card. Lastly, we need to find some old Christmas ads for retailers selling video games at that time. This was the hardest part. I had originally planned to have JCPenney and Sears on here because of their annual Christmas catalogs. I also wanted to add Walmart, Toys R Us, and GameStop to the mix, but sadly, there are no ads from these guys anywhere on the internet from that era. I did manage to find an EBGames ad from 2001 online, so that gives us 3 stores to work with, which I think is a good sample size. Now all that remains is to look at each system store by store and see what they're offering. Starting off with Sears. Feast your eyes on this. The Sears Christmas book circa 2001. I must say that outside of the CD and DVD players, most of this stuff wouldn't be too out of place in the catalog today. Let's hop over to the gaming section and see what's what. Starting off with the Dreamcast here, we got a bunch of box art for sports games. Mostly stuff from the 2K series before they killed off the sports genre. Besides those, there's Sega Bass Fishing 2 and Outrigger, which is kind of a deep cut from the Dreamcast library. All these games are listed plus a handful of extras on the side here. Wait, hold up. Sonic Advance was never on Dreamcast. What the hell? Okay, so they're actually advertising for Sonic Adventure 2, which makes more sense. If you take the time to read Sears' description of the game, you'll find that they spelled Tails' name wrong and refer to Eggman as Robotnik. While technically correct, everyone in the game refers to him as Dr. Eggman, including Eggman himself. Whatever, what are we gonna buy? Sears is selling a Dreamcast set for $139.99. It has a console, 2 controllers, the cables, and 3 games. Holy fuck, that's an amazing deal. With that, the only things I need to buy are the VMU and a couple of games. Right off the bat, I know I want Sonic and Crazy Taxi 2. Outrigger looks interesting. It's a shooter and an early example of online multiplayer in gaming. Looking at it gives me Virtual On vibes, so I might have to cop that too. Would probably go for Shenmue 2 if not for the fact that it only came out in Dreamcast in Japan and Europe. In the States, Sega had an exclusivity deal with Xbox. That's why we didn't get a Dreamcast version of Shenmue 2 over here in the United States. But the Dreamcast is pretty much on its way out anyway, so it doesn't really matter much in the grand scheme of things. In fact, that's probably why this bundle is so good in the first place. Everybody knew the Dreamcast was going to be discontinued soon. I can't really think of a better way to unload some extra stock. Overall, this will run me $329.95 plus tax. Honestly, a really good deal considering how sick that bundle was. Next, let's look at the PS2. PS2 gets the 3-page spread because it's been out for at least a year, so that's plenty of time to have a decent selection of games out. As for selection, I hope you like sports games. There's not much here that interests me, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's see what they're selling their hardware for. $399.99 for a Gran Turismo 3 bundle. Nowhere near as good as the Dreamcast bundle, but the PS2 was newer at the time, so it makes sense. Both the controller and the memory card will run me about $40 a piece. As for the games, I'll take Dark Cloud and Crash. One is a criminally overlooked JRPG, and the other is probably one of the last good Crash platformers before Toys R Bob stepped in. Rest in peace. Sadly, I can't get either one as it would put me way over my $500 budget. Even if I got just one, it would bankrupt me, since both of these games are $60 a piece. Fuck. I could have sworn games from this gen were at least $50. Not that it matters now. Screw it. I'll leave the extra controller and get Dark Cloud instead. Done and done. Who's the GameCube and Xbox? I'm doing them both here because Sears is doing them both here. On the plus side, each comes with 2 games of your choice. On the downside, they don't actually have the options listed here. You got to call the 800 number or go to the website for that. It makes sense as the systems probably weren't out yet when they made this thing, so now what? Okay, so here's the launch lineup for the GameCube, and here's the one for the Xbox. Well, we're talking Xbox, and Halo is a no-brainer. It's not the first game I got on my Xbox, but it's one of the first console FPS games I ever owned and played. My other choice would be DOA 3, mainly because I play the hell out of DOA 2 Ultimate. GameCube is a bit harder. I know I want Luigi's Mansion for one of my choices, but my other choice is torn between Wave Race, Rogue Leader, or Crazy Taxi. Crazy Taxi is fun, but you can plow through that thing in an afternoon. Wave Race is a classic that's begging for a remaster, and Rogue Leader is one of the best Star Wars games ever made. Fuck it, I'm flipping a coin. Heads for Star Wars, tails for Wave Race. Alright, that's solved. Unfortunately, Sears isn't selling any accessories, so that means we're done here. Oddly enough, I only got everything I wanted from the Dreamcast while staying under budget. The PS2 was expensive, and the Xbox and GameCube hadn't technically came out yet, so there's nothing to offer besides some unknown games. Let's hop over to JCPenney next. JCPenney was the other retailer that did a whole annual Christmas book thing. The setup is similar to Sears, but the prices aren't. Just take a look at the Dreamcast page. Yeah, $99 for their Dreamcast. That's about $40 cheaper. Now, to be fair, it doesn't come with an extra controller, but they are selling that cheaper too. You still get the 3 sports games, but we have more money to work with than before. The downside is that we have a smaller selection of games to choose from. They say the website has more options, but that thing is deader than my faith in humanity, so it's a non-option. All we have to go on is what's listed on this page, and I only see 2 games that I want here. The same 2 I chose before. Throw that in with the cheaper VMU and our total is about $220. How much is Choo Choo Rocket? Fuck it, $240. It's PS2 time once again. You got another bundle, and this time it's $40 more, but it comes with a memory card, an extra controller, a DVD remote, and a vertical stand. As for games, most of it I couldn't give less of a shit about. Out of what's here, I would either go for Crazy Taxi, NBA Street, or Gundam. I can only get one once again, as 2 will put me over budget. Crazy Taxi isn't the move here as it's short, and I already have Gran Turismo 3 included in my bundle. 1 car game is enough right now. Street is the type of arcadey sports game I dearly miss, but the weeb in me has gotta go for Gundam. Die, Xeon scum! So that concludes the JCPenney section of the video. Where's the Xbox and GameCube? They didn't get put in the book. Maybe the book was made before the systems were announced or something. You can buy N64 and PS1 stuff, but that's not the gen we're covering today, so we've got to move on. EBGames is the last store on our list today. They used to be one of the largest game store chains in the States before GameStop acquired them and expanded out. I think they might still be called EBGames in Canada. Anyway, this is more of a time capsule than the other stores, as it really zeroes in on the gaming culture going on at the time. Outside the actual games being sold, we have a selection of hits from Prima strategy guides. Remember those? A section for reviews, and a section in the back where some store employees tell you what their most anticipated game coming out is. Seriously, there is so much shit in here that I could do a whole video on just it by itself. Alright, let's get down to business. The Dreamcast section is confusing as fuck. For starters, they don't have a price for either the system, the VMU, or the controller. I can't go off other store prices here because those were bundles. So for just this once, we're going to pretend that we already have all the hardware and accessories that we need, and we're only just going to shop for Dreamcast games. And they're dirt cheap. Awesome! On this page, I would get Bomberman and Jet Grind Radio. I've always loved Bomberman, always have, always will. And Jet Grind Radio needs no real introduction. It's one of the first few games you think of when you hear Dreamcast. On this page, I would also cop KOF Dream Match 99. It's a remade port of KOF 98 that runs in 60 FPS alongside some other enhancements. I'm not sure why there's strategy guides in here, but there you go. That's what I would get for the Dreamcast. PS2 has its price listed, thank God. All our hardware would bump us up to about $370, leaving us about $130 left over. I think EB has the largest PS2 selection out of anyone, as there are about 10.5 different pages of PS2 games. That's a lot, so we're gonna narrow things down a bit. So, after a bit of work, I narrowed it down to 21 games, which is still too damn high. So, after some soul searching, I bought it down to 8. With these prices, I'll only be able to get about 2 games or so. So, I need more time to think. Well, I've decided on Silent Hill 2 and GTA 3. As of today, there is no way to easily play the original version of Silent Hill 2 without all the HD collection bullshit. So if I had the opportunity to buy and play it, I would do it again in a heartbeat. And GTA 3 might not be as cool as Vice City or San Andreas, but it's still a good GTA game at the end of the day. Yeah, I can live with that. The GameCube was $199.99 at launch. We have the controllers for $34.99 and a memory card for $19.99. We still have about $250 left to drop on some games. You know, I could just buy every game on this page and still be under budget. Yeah, let's just do that. The Xbox is $299.99, the controller is $39.99. The memory card is still a few bucks cheaper, but since the OG Xbox has built-in storage, the memory card is only useful if I'm bringing my data to another Xbox. I'll put it to the side for now and just roll with the controller and the console for about $340. For games, you have about 5.5 pages to go through. You end up choosing these 3 games since they are about $54.99 a piece. And with that, we are done. I felt like I was generally able to get everything I wanted with the budget that I came up with. If I was going to get a Dreamcast, I would probably get that from JCPenney because it easily gave me the biggest bang for my buck. For everything else, I would just go to EBGames. It ended up being cheaper and having a better selection, but I'll give Sears and JCPenney credit. Some of those bundles were alright. Well, that's the end of my imaginary shopping trip. I'm really interested to see what you guys would buy out of these old magazines, so please sound off in the comments. I want to know. Depending on how long it takes to make this thing, it might be the last video of the year. That or something for Marvel Rivals, if I can fit it in. Well, I hope y'all enjoy the rest of this holiday season and the rest of 2024 too. Something tells me 2025 is gonna be a year. Yup.